Okay. All right, it's recording. Hey, Beppe,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. Okay.
So far, so good.
Yes.
So, this time is a little different. You know, the couple times that we've talked before, almost each time we were talking with a bit of a focus on coaching and how people, how people are in coaching and how they navigate different areas of their life. And this time we thought we might talk about a topic that we both enjoy quite a bit, which is creativity and making things and exploring and the whole process and everything that comes up in that process of making things. And I think it came up most recently with us because you and I were speaking a week or so ago, and you were telling me about writing poetry and archiving, and that's sort of what got us going last time.
Yeah. So creativity is a broad topic, and even though the other times we were talking about coaching and or even therapy and stuff like that. But creativity is at the core of working with that stuff, and I personally believe that creativity has a healing power, and in fact, that I can even go to the extreme that it's not healing if there is no creative input in it, so just said that it's a broad thing, and mostly when one talks about creativity, the first association that comes is like artistic creativity. I mean, the artist is like the ultimate human creator, or at least has been considered, whether it's a painter, a musician, a writer, or whatever. But it's somehow where creativity is used in its pure form to pursue something new, to express, to pursue beauty in a way, to pursue meaning in all those kind of things. So in coaching, it's applied to a task, which is having an outcome and try to obtain that outcome or to reach that outcome. In an artistic way is kind of more open in terms of it really you're really opening the doors to let anything happen in whatever however form of artistic creation you are in, in coaching you have a sense of what the end is going to be. Most likely artistically, if it's especially an improvisational artistic participation, which for me is like the ultimate form of creativity, is you don't know where you're going to end. You just step into that place where you pursue the mystery. You don't pursue the solution. You pursue the mystery, and there are all these wonderful things that you discover within the mystery.
So I want to slow down a couple of those things. I mean, one thing that's interesting is at times I look at creativity in the context of coaching or the creative state as an indication that the client is moving. You know, because when somebody is stuck, and the word stuck is a great indication, there tends to be a rigidity of how they're experiencing a situation, how they're using their thinking,
Mm-hmm.
how they're using their body. Mm-hmm. And when creativity starts to show up, or that exploration, or the getting acclimated to the unknown as opposed to resisting the unknown, that lets me know that somebody is moving in a good direction.
Mhm. Yeah, getting attached to the known is one of the strategies of being stuck, because it's like supposedly is that if you're not moving and you do want move, but you cannot, you are. I suppose you have considered all the known things possible, and so you didn't find anything. So you have that's when you have to step into something that you ever not thought before, a perceptual position which is different than the one that you usually have. So that's when you have to kind of tease something that didn't exist before to appear. And that's hopefully, and this is, kind of trial and error kind of process. And hopefully you're going to hit something that is going to have at least a chance compared with the fact that everything that you have known up until then did not help.
Didn't yield a result.
Yeah.
And I think both in coaching and in just creative activity, it's interesting to play with the idea of having a target versus not having a target and being more in a state of mind of exploration. And I think my coaching very much has changed recently to be a little bit less specific in terms of an outcome, and letting, the idea of letting an outcome emerge from this exploration and the addition of creativity, and then seeing what opens up. And you and I were talking about the difference between sitting down and making a drawing with something very specific in mind and trying to get the drawing right versus drawing to see what comes out.
Yeah, it's I have, in my personal experience, have gone through different phases of approaching, a creative activity in this one. But when I was painting, and basically my approach, the creative part was like this, the spark that creates, gives you an idea, you have a vision, you have something that is, whether it's conceptualized, if you're a painter, obviously that will be its visual counterpart. Then my effort just was into manifesting and putting down on a canvas, on a paper, whatever I was using, that idea that was very defined and was very precise. So somehow the birth of that concept or idea, it happened. So that part of the process already happened. At that point, I would step into an execution stage, which in itself and for itself was not that creative in its essence. Although you can be creating in which brush do I use or which one, you can kind of, that's a more like a find solution for the technology that you use or the approach that you're going to use. But the idea in general was already out there in my mind. And then I had to execute that as close to it as I could, which triggered a search for perfection, which turned out to be really obsessive and painful.
Right, and it can be quite painful, and it can be a prison of sorts, right?
Yes.
And in my case, when it came to drawing, the degree to which, if I was trying to draw something specific, which was very difficult for me, I'm not great at that. It was just an opportunity to beat myself up endlessly, to the point where I didn't draw very much. And shifting instead to an exploration to see how does this media, what comes out. Just make stuff and see what comes out, and then see if there's something there that you can build on based on what comes up, and not trying to control it in the beginning of the process. And it's, we talk about cooking a lot as well, and it's it's almost the difference between trying to get a recipe perfect versus trying to be inventive with the recipe.
Yeah, and you know, both have their own positive aspect, because one can get a kick out of a perfect execution, and it's very satisfying. At the same time, the stepping into the unknown and the mystery, which implies a certain degree of daring and a certain degree of fear. There are no, you know, until you see the results, that there is no real. There is a promise, but this is not something that is a given. So that there is the doubt, there is the mystery again, and that is precious. That's the part for me where life feels at its best. You're engaged. It's almost like you're fighting for your life, really, and, with no real danger. So there is, you know, you have a parachute on your back in a way, but that is the excitement. There is something borderline into the unknown, which is terrifying and incredibly exhilarating. So and that is life again, you know, is that you can experience whether you're preparing a new dish, you know, somebody can heat up your seat if what you're preparing is then you have to present it to a bunch of friends or
and that's where the problems start often. is the idea of a perceived audience, right?
At the same time, in those situations, what I find it helps is to reach down to the core of my intention, find that pure spot of my intention, which is actually doing something graceful for my friends. I want to make them feel comfortable. I want them to enjoy the food. I want to nurture them. I want to give them something good. So that kind of is up the preoccupation. And, you know, you can always end up, you know, hey, this is a present. If you like it, fine. If you don't like, you know,
it was interesting. I was, excuse me, I was teaching a modeling class, and we had two folks in the class. One woman loved entertaining and giving dinner parties, and the other one wanted to and was terrified. And the difference was pretty much what you described. You know, the woman who was terrified thought that it had to be at this level, you know, like the food had to be impeccable, like the wine had to be perfect, you know, the setting. And the other woman said, "Oh no, you know, you're giving out free food and booze. Like, who doesn't love that?" You know? So that allowed her to be very bold in her exploration and have a lot of fun with it.
But you know, as I was you know, talking back about different stages of creativity, is at a certain point I got so bogged down into this trying to execute my design or my idea that was becoming too uncomfortable. And while I was doing that, in the meantime, I had new ideas that they became sort of, I had to abort them because I had to finish up with that damn piece. And so somehow there was a lot of frustration going with that. And sometimes, yes, that there was an end to it and could be more or less satisfactory. But the whole process became painful. And then at a certain point was like, I didn't believe that necessarily the creative process or the artistic process has to be an agony of some sort, although that it can go there. I'm not putting that aside completely, but somehow I didn't want to approach art that way. I wanted to have more fun. I just wanted to have a more positive experience. And I regard playfulness high in my criteria set. So I wanted to have some of that. And so then I broke from that. I stopped painting. I broke with that pattern. And then just not to make the story short, I was inspired by music and by somebody who happened to be to make a name, Keith Jarrett, and became my idol of improvisation and creativity. And I was just mesmerized just to listening to him and to look at him in his state of grace, which I saw was just a state of grace. Was at that point was beyond art. There was something spiritual about that. It was kind of being in the zone and staying there and expressing that. In his case, with the piano. So I went into music in a very unorthodox way. My goal was not to learn to read music or really to be articulate in music, was just to sit down and be present to myself to the degree that anything I would touch, it would be a meaningful expression of what I was at. I believed in that. And I spent days and days becoming obsessive again in it. But the whole idea of improvisation and openness was wonderful. It was, I would say, stepping into an unconscious state of creativity. And then after that, somehow, again, I hit like an obsessive kind of point, and I went back into painting. At that point, my painting was completely different. At that point, I had just a spark of an idea, which was not developed, and it would develop as I would paint. And so it was a constant improvisation, and until a path was established by the relationship between me and the painting, and even the gesture in painting. I was somehow compelled to use the colors and the brush strokes in a quick, fast, rhythmic way. So that became a completely different experience with an open end until it felt like this is it. Until you felt like this is the last stop. I arrived. This is it. So different kinds of creativity.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I had a similar experience when I studied music. Playing guitar, playing jazz guitar. I didn't realize at the time, but it's easy to internalize all kinds of external critics and whatnot and standards of other people. And I realized at a certain point that I was playing to all these different standards of what I thought was a good level, or what I thought they thought was a good level. My teachers, and it became very restrictive to the point where I wasn't enjoying it. And after I finished school, I took a period of time, and I just decided that, okay, from now on, I'm just for a time, I'm only going to play what I genuinely feel like playing. I'm only going to play and practice things that have an impulse. That I want to hear something, or I want to see it, if I can sort out a particular technique. And it was amazing. My playing really opened up, and really excelled at a different level just by taking off all those standards and restrictions for a period of time. And that was fantastic. And another example of that was that I had a short stint of playing the saxophone, and I didn't feel the same restriction, or because I wasn't a saxophonist at a self-identity level. I was somebody who was dabbling, and dabbling gave me this incredible freedom.
Mhm.
You know, because I didn't have to be good. So, you know, it's amazing how a degree of skill can become a prison, or, you know, or it can become like a new, you know, everything has to be at this level. And that not just myself, I see that really limiting a lot of artists. Like they get to do one thing well and they're not willing to take chances because it might not be at that same level.
Yes. Yes, it's you mentioned something which I believe it's interesting and it's important. It's like the identity aspect of when you are engaged in a creative process and who you are in the creative process. Now, and this also works differently for different people. I find that for me, you know, as I said before, when I went into play music, my goal was not to become a musician. I was not a musician. I didn't want to be a musician. There would be, if anything, that would be a byproduct of what I was doing. But not, I was not playing to sustain my identity of being a musician. And when I was painting, yes, I called myself a painter because of people ask you what you do, and somehow it's part of the language. But I was never identified with it, and also now that my artistic expression goes into writing. These days to writing poems. I don't start with the idea I'm a poet. I write poetry. I try to write poetry. I have fun writing poetry. I get a kick of writing poetry. It makes me feel alive and I enjoy the process. But I'm not writing poetry in order to be a poet or to sustain that idea or that image. I joined fairly recently a group of poets, in fact. And the first meeting, they are more traditional kind of poets, some in an academic way, and some others they seems to be interested in the identity of being poets. And the introduction of the group leader was like, we're doing this group because we want to become better writers and better poets. Which, of course, when it came to my turn to talk, is like, I don't really care about being a better writer because I don't consider myself a writer. I just here because I want to be stimulated in writing more and more fluently. So the process for me, as it seems to be preponderant, to be the most important aspect of creativity, is that of course then you have you want a product, but that you want a product that should satisfy you and your creativity, and then you hope somebody else is going to like, or that you're going to communicate something to somebody else, because that is sharing eventually is another aspect. That's the connection aspect of art. Is that eventually that it's an aim, it's a yearning for connection, for resonance, to vibrate with somebody else who might have your same experience, or somebody that for whom you can kind of ease their attention into something that they can enjoy and they can appreciate. So you hope that those things are going to happen, but those things for me, they're not going to happen unless I'm completely absorbed in the process of what I'm doing, because that's when I have to reach inside. That's a completely fully personal perception of I want to try to express. And my belief is that the deeper you go there, the more you have chances to resonate with other people. You have to reach a point which is kind of a collective spot that we all have. And if you reach that point, it's a byproduct that you're going to be communicative. And so somehow that's for what it matters for me, and that's what creativity is such a great, I would say, a great aspiration in my life, and then somehow it's like I have noticed for my experience that creativity, as much as I said, I have to aim to the deepest part of myself. There is something along the way that comes along and is not you. It's something that is beyond you, something that inspires you, something that is going to hand me the words that I need. So I have to, to me, the poetry is more like the Fisher technique. I throw the line and then I wait. I'm not a hunter, running after the prey. I just wait for the bite. And if anybody went fishing, you know how exciting it is to feel that bite on your line.
And I think you're talking very much about your process, and not to say that it isn't similar to other people's. Where there's a certain depth of expression that you're looking for, and you're trying to convey in poetry a certain experience, perhaps. So that sounds like it's requiring a certain amount of introspection on your part to get to that. And sometimes when I'm exploring creatively in music, it's really just more getting into a state of mind of play. And, so it's not, there's not a bar that I'm trying to reach, or I'm just like, how can I get playful? Or, sometimes it's more like, there's a feeling, or there's an itch I want to scratch. And, and let me see if I can get to that. Like, there's something right around the corner that I'm trying to get to. So, and I think that's the beauty of creativity, or what we're calling creativity, is it can be so many different things.
Yeah, when I say, reach to the deepest part of yourself, I know that sounds like a heavy duty kind of thing to do, but it's actually, you can do that being playful. And if you go back to the metaphor of the fisherman, if you look at a fisherman fishing, you don't see that person struggling much.
There's not this mental anguish.
Right, exactly.
There's patience.
Exactly, there is patience, and there is a certain degree of faith that things eventually are going to happen. And if not now, and if not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a month. And maybe you just pull up the line and you throw it somewhere else. That, is somehow you just buy into the process, and you enjoy the pleasure of when something comes, and then it fits, and you find that you kind of fish like that piece of the puzzles that you were missing, and you couldn't find it anywhere, and then finally gets there. It's a wonderful feeling, and again, it's like the idea that you have to show up to it. I mean, you have to hold the line. You have to put the lure in the hook. You have to, to do all those. You have to pick the right spot if you want. So there is something that you do, but eventually you're not alone in it. And what comes to you, what you find, often feels like it just falls on your arms, and you take it. You take it because you have your arms stretched out, and so that's the aspect that I go through when I'm creating, and when I'm fishing for words, and it's quite pleasurable and intense, and And in fact, sometimes it's a choice during the day. I said I should sit down and write. It's always like a little a little spark of encouragement to procrastinate. You know, it's like, what if nothing comes today? What if I don't? You know, all those things. But then it's like, then you sit down and it happens. I believe that for that, it's important the discipline to sit down, you know, as often as you can.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think, well, I had a teacher in architecture school, and being a young student, I was saying to him, you know, I'm waiting for that spark, you know, and he said, I really appreciate that. And he said there are kind of two sides to it. There's this spark of inspiration, and then there's the craft. And the craft is just showing up every day and honing your ability to draw, to play, you know, to do your scales. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you really put in the time in the craft, the sparks would show up often enough, and more often, in fact. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice rhythm. I didn't want to believe him at the time. I wanted to believe that the yes, you know, I can just get endless ideas, and I can paint or draw or play when I'm inspired. And he said, no, you know, make it a ritual, like show up for the craft.
Yes.
And I think that's, for me, it's been a very useful, it's very useful to just build the ritual. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, it's it's a great line, that, you know, creativity is an invitation to procrastinate. Mm-hmm. And I often say there's a speed bump at the beginning of the process, and you can let that speed bump just back you away from it, or you can kind of work your way over it and get to the other side.
And you know, it's like the discipline, or the discipline sometimes is not only sitting down to write or to do or to paint or to do those things. Of course, I'm not dismissing the importance of that. But somehow it's like the discipline is also to be tuned into receiving something and catch it. When you notice something, there is that might be like a common thing, but for you and for that moment, it's quite extraordinary for you. Something that catches your attention, something that is a little spark that you notice looking at things, or a thought, or somebody that says a sentence, and it's just like a nail in your head, boom, you know. It's like being able like to recognize that little internal spasm, you know. Don't dismiss that. That's important. Take a note, do a little sketch, do anything, but put it down. That's a seed, because then you go back to it, and you can be amazed how much can open up from that if you bring your attention back to something that instinctively and unconsciously you felt was important in one form or another. And the important is not to dismiss those things. Mm-hmm. Which is not easy, because I'll tell you, many times I do regret having some things that come to me and feeling like, oh, that's great. And then I have to finish to fry my egg, and then I have to look for something else. And then I'm sitting eating the egg. It's like, what was that? Right. I can't. It's almost like dreams. Sometimes you remember as soon as you wake up, and then if you let 2 hours go, you don't anymore. You know. So it's important somehow to catch those things and to take them kind of, you know, seriously in a way, and they're important. And then that is, again, with those things. That's at least the way I function. It's like there is something that gives a sign. It can be one verse, just playing came to my mind, but nothing else. and I don't want to sit down and just squeeze the lemon to make something else come up. Is that I just put it down, and then eventually in a I would say in a playful, relaxed manner, you can pay attention to it. Simply pay attention to it, and something might
Right. And
come up.
it might have a brother or a sister. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the amazing thing is that, at least what I like and what fascinates me, is that I have no idea where that's going to go. I don't know what's going to be in the middle of that poem. I don't know what is going to be the end. I don't know really what's going to open up. Sometimes maybe just like a stone in the middle of a stream where I put my foot and I cross the stream, and then I don't need to carry that stone with me just because it was important to cross the stream. I just let it be there, and then in fact I might use a verse to start a poem, and then in the middle I realize that I need to edit out that piece in order to proceed.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's like that impulse was a scaffold, but then once you've built the thing, you don't need the scaffold anymore, maybe.
Right,
so,
right. And sometimes you have to kind of work at it, because there is, at least on my part, there is some attachment to what you create.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
oh no, that sounded so good, and I have to let it go.
Well, another thing I got from a teacher in school was I had made a drawing that was really nice, and it was based on a particular idea that I had. I had sort of had this vision. It became this drawing, and the teacher said that he said, you can take one idea like that and make 50 different drawings from that one idea. And I really love that, because those, like you said, those sparks and the importance of noting them down. Each spark can have, many offspring.
Yeah, it's yeah. There are also, even in that, the amazing thing about creativity is that it has so many facets, and there are so many different ways of approach, and it's just amazing. I remember it was a time when I was working both in sculpture and painting, in which as I said, my obsession of creating a piece just as it needed to be in my mind was laborious and long. So at a certain point, that was supposed to be a piece finished. The piece itself was a cycle of my whole painting experience. I didn't want to make a variation of that. Sometimes, and I've done that too. You have like I have a series of painting about light, with one color, with another color, with a mixture of color, but there's like a common theme that I kept developing left and right. But other periods, I made a piece, and then the next one was a completely different experience, completely, in the look, in the form, in the shape, whether it was flat or three-dimensional, whether it was interactive or not. But somehow each piece was a cycle. And in fact, I had some, arguments with my painting teacher, because at the end of what I have created, then he was expecting to have more. In this instance, was the resolution to my piece was a certain point. I was not satisfied with the flat experience, so I had to build up a door behind the painting, and then cut off the canvas and put a knob and open the door. And inside there was a composition that said more of what I wanted to say. And that was like a great complex piece. And then I noticed that after that, with the conversation with the teachers, that he was expecting that I would do more doors. And he said, well, you can expand here, you can put different things, you can. and I kept saying, there is not going to be another door ever in my life.
And now you're the door guy, and everything's got to be doors. Yeah.
Little I knew that I would get so obsessed in building my kitchen door.
I mean, that's, oh yeah, that was amazing too. But that's the trap of doing something well, or doing something in a way that is compelling to people, is then you can be held to that standard, or just everybody's clamoring for that. And you know, it's like the one-hit wonder. They want to hear that song again. They don't want to hear your new song.
Yeah, that's another kind of little how do you say, little being around, you know, the creative process, especially artistic, is like the once you have shown at least one of your things, there is going to be expectation out there, and whatever that expectation is good on one side, that yeah, people are looking forward to hear more or to see more, but at the same time they're expecting something. And some react very nicely to the change, or to the fact that they're not getting anything close to what they're expecting, and they enjoy the surprise. Other, they get disappointed. Oh, well, I was expecting coffee and you bring me tea. You know.
Yeah, and it can be disruptive to their concept of your identity, right? So you know, we have an identity that people are accustomed to, and obviously this is a big topic in coaching. And when our identity begins to shift, sometimes the people around us might complain about that, or they're gonna, you know, as well-meaning as they are, they may want to hold us to the previous identity. And it's interesting to see certain artists go through that struggle. And I really don't know much about Miley Cyrus, but you know, this pop singer, but she was a child star, and then had to go through this complete rebellion to become who she wanted to be, because the childhood identity was curated for her, and she didn't want that. So that's an interesting moment to see with artists, is, you know, when there is a shift.
I heard recently she sang I Wish You Were Here, the Pink Floyd song. I never heard her before. It was mind-blowing. I loved it. You know,
I don't know why it came to my mind. Yeah, I'll listen to that.
But you know, the identity in this is kind of, in a way, it's a double-edged sword. That in a way, kind of, it's an introduction to you that is much needed. If whatever you present yourself somewhere, there is a certain identity that is useful, that you have, and you act out, and you express. And it's like if I go to teach a class, instead of being dressed like a teacher is supposed to dress, I go there dressed like a pilot. I don't it's going to be a little disorienting for the students. So, but then on the other side is like, for me, it has been throughout my life an issue that I believe it has helped me into open up and change. And then on the other side was limiting. I feel, for some personal reasons, I feel nailed by an identity. So that at a certain point, when I see I am considered and judged within that identity, I have this incredible urge to go into something else and becoming something else. Because I feel that being very, very restrictive. As I said, I feel nailed into a role. But at the same time, if you embrace it and you perform your own identity at your best, that's great, because you have a track that you can run on, you know.
Well, I think this is a good point to pause, because I think this is a juicy topic that maybe we can do a part 2 at some point.
Okay.
So that being said, thanks for joining me today.
And thanks for the conversation.
And now I'm going to go cook because it's inspired me to do that. Okay, Beppe, thank you.
Ciao.
Okay.
Bye.